Hello and welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 30th of November 2023। तो आज की इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल जो है, इंडिया बैक्स यूएन रेजोल्यूशन अगेंस्ट इजराइल फॉर नॉट लिविंग सीरियन गोलन, देन सेंटर एंड मणिपुर इंक डील बैंड मैतीस इंसर्जेंट बॉडी, मेजर ऑयल एंड गैस फार्म्स हैव प्लेज्ड टू गो कार्बन न्यूट्रल बाय 2050 according to COP28 chief। Understanding rat hole mining. What is behind the halal certificate ban in Uttar Pradesh? Government lists four Jammu and Kashmir bills criminal law legislation. Unemployment rate in urban areas has come down according to survey. Then India's G20 presidency and the dawn of a new multilateralism. The next year, the free food grain scheme to continue for 5 more years. Center to provide drones to 15,000 women groups for use in agriculture. Then cabinet approves to 24,104 crore rupees outlay for tribal welfare. Sri Lanka reaches deal with India Paris Club on debt plan. Then final जो लास्ट का आर्टिकल है, गवर्नमेंट पेव्स वे फॉर 16th फाइनेंस पैनल। तो चलिए वन बाय वन देखते हैं। पहला जो आर्टिकल है, इंडिया बैक्स यूनाइटेड नेशन रेजोल्यूशन अगेंस्ट इजराइल फॉर नॉट लिविंग सीरियन गोलन, देन सेंटर एंड मणिपुर इंक डील विथ बैंड मैती इंसर्जेंट बॉडी। हमारा अमित शाह जी हैं। India has voted in favor of a draft resolution in the United Nations General Assembly (UNGA) that expressed a deep concern over Israel not withdrawing from the Syrian Golan. The Syrian Golan is a region in the southwest Syria that was occupied by Israel forces on June 5, 1967. The 193-member UNGA voted on the draft resolution the Syrian Golan. Under agenda item, the situation is in the Middle East on Tuesday. The resolution introduced by Egypt was adopted by 91 votes in favor, 8 against, and 62 abstention. Australia, Canada, Israel, and UK and the US voted against it. The resolution also stressed the illegality of the Israeli statement construction in the Golan. The next is Center and Manipur Inc. deal with banned Meitei insurgent body. The Center and the Manipur government have signed a peace agreement with the United Nations Liberation Front (UNLF), a banned Meitei extremist organization and also oldest armed group based in the Manipur Valley. The Union Home Minister Amit Shah said on Wednesday. The UNLF has agreed to renounce violence and join the mainstream. I welcome them to democratic processes, Mr. Shah said. The UNLF was formed in 1964 and has been operating both within and outside Indian territory, the Union Ministry of Home Affairs MHA said. It is one of the 8 Meitei extremist organizations that the MHA has declared as unlawful association under the anti-terror law, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. Last week, the ban against these groups, which seeks Manipur secession from India, was extended for another 5 years. Though the MHA did not share the details of the surrendered militants, the Hindu has learned that as many as 65 cadres of one of the UNLF factions, led by K. Pombei, have joined the peace pact. These 65 cadres are said to have entered Manipur during the ongoing ethnic violence. The other faction of the UNLF, led by R.K. Akau Singh allies Koireng, is still out of the pact. Sorry. Then next is the understanding the rat hole mining. Understanding the rat hole mining. Two scientific methods of mining, vertically drilling and auger or horizontal drilling, were employed to rescue 41 workers on November 28 after 17 days of being trapped in the partially collapsed Silkayara tunnel in Uttarakhand. The last leg of the rescue involved rat hole mining, once used extensively in Meghalaya. What is rat hole mining? Among the rescued workers were Ram Prasad Narjari and Sanjay Basumantri, both from the Ramphalbil area of western Assam's Kokrajhar district. Locals could not help mark the irony of the rat hole method being applied to rescue them from the Silkyara tunnel because a few lives from that part of Assam were lost in the coal mines of Meghalaya Dog. Using these crude methods before and after the National Green Tribunal (NGT) banned it in April 2014, rat hole mining of two types it is so named as it involves digging tunnel 3-4 past feet deep, barely allowing workers to crawl in and out. They have to squat while extracting coal with the picks. Peak access. The side-cutting type of mining is usually done on hills slopes by following a coal seam, dark brown or black banded coal deposits deposited within layers of rock. Visible from outside, the second type called box cutting entail digging a circular or squarish pit at least 5 square meter in width up to a depth of 400 feet. Miners who drop down in makeshift cranes or using rope and bamboo ladders dig horizontally after finding the coal seam. The tunnel are dug in every direction from the edge of a pit resembling the tentacles of an octopus. Why is such mining banned? The government has little control over the land in Meghalaya, a sixth scheduled state where the Coal Mines Naturalization Act of 1973 does not apply. The owners are thus also the owner of the mine minerals beneath. Coal mining boomed after Meghalaya attained statehood in January 1972. However, the terrain and expenses involved discouraged mine owner from employing advanced drilling machines, so laborers mainly from Assam, Nepal and adjoining Bangladesh risked the hazard of red hole mining. Asphyxiation because of poor ventilation, collapse of mines due to lack of structural support and flooding to earn thrice or four times as much as working in farms or construction sites. Apart from issues of safety and health, unregulated mining led to land degradation, deforestation, and water with high concentration of sulfates, iron, and toxic heavy metals. Low dissolved low dissolved oxygen and high biochemical oxygen demand. At least two rivers, Lukha and Maintru, became too acidic to sustain aquatic life. These factors led to the NGT banning rat hole mining in the Meghalaya in 2014 while observing there is umpteen numbers of cases where by virtue of rat hole mining during the rainy season, water flooded into the mining areas, resulting in the death of many illegal mining and transportation of coal, as mentioned in the interim reports of a one-man committee appointed by the High Court of Meghalaya has continued despite the ban and loss of lives. At least 17 miners were drowned in an illegal mine in the East Jaintia Hills district, Kashan, in December 2018 after water gushed in from a river. What led the NGT ban? Environmentalists and human rights activists began flagging the hazard of rat hole mining in Meghalaya 2 decades ago. The campaign intensified after Impulse, a Meghalaya-based NGO, began addressing the issue of human trafficking and child labor in such mines. Three reports prepared by NGO first with the Nepal-based Esther Benjamin Trust in May 2010, the second with Aid at Action in December 2010, and the last with Human Rights Now in July 2011 estimated that about 70,000 children, most from Bangladesh and Nepal, were employed in these mines because they were the right size to work in them. The state's Department of Mining and Geology refuted the claim, but under pressure from the National Human Rights Commission admitted in June 2013 and the 222 children were employed in rat hole mines, especially in the East Jaintia Hills district. The NGT ban came a year later. What is the way forward? Unlike in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, coal seams in Meghalaya are very thin. These miners say makes rat hole mining more economically viable than open cast mining. The state has an estimated reserve of 576.48 million tons of low as high sulfur coal belonging to the Usin age 33 to 56 million years ago. The stake for a section of locals have been so high that the state employment government has been under pressure to facilitate the resumption of mining legally. In May 2023, Meghalaya Chief Minister Conrad K. Sangma said the Coal Ministry approved mining leases for 4 of the 17 prospective license applicants. This would lead to the commencement of scientific mining, ensuring minimal environmental impact through sustainable and legal compliant extraction procedure. Anti-mining activists who were assaulted by miners of and on said that scientific would eventually be a fancy tag in a state where profit has driven coal mining. The next step, what is behind the halal certificate ban in Uttar Pradesh? On November 18, the Uttar Pradesh Government Food Security and Drug Administration banned the manufacture, sale, storage, and distribution of halal certified products with immediate effect. Halal in Arabic terms means permissible as opposed to notions of haram prohibited in Islam. A halal certificate means the product is fit to be consumed by followers of the faith. It is particularly relevant for meat items and is considered essential while exporting meat to Muslim countries. Following the order, units of police raided various malls across UP to seize any halal products. Why was it banned? The quick action to raid malls followed a complaint lodged in Lucknow by an office bearer of the youth wing of the Bharatiya Janata Party, wherein the complaint accused several halal certifying outfits of issuing forged certificate to increase their sale among a certain community. They, in the process, violated public trust and created social animosity. It was alleged, though many read in the government's step, yet another action aimed at marginalizing the state's Muslim community, the government insisted it had acted according to the law and fair trade practices. How the halal certificate issued? Halal certificates are given by the Jamiat Ulam-e-Hind Halal Unit and the Halal Shariat Islamic Law Board, both of whom have been cleared by the National Accreditation Board for certification body, while the Shariat Islamic Law Board enjoys permissions for certifying food products. The Jamiat's unit can certify only meat. These agencies have slammed the decision to ban halal certified products, leading the way. The Jamiat claimed the government had not sent any notice or circular before the move and dubbed it ridiculously and unfortunate, expressing a desire to explore legal options including considering the government's action as an infringement upon citizens' fundamental right to eat what is permissible by faith. The Jamaat insisted it ticks all the boxes when it comes to fulfilling the norms set by the government for issuing halal certificates. Where adhere to government regulations as emphasized in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry notification requiring all halal certification bodies to be registered with NABCB, National Accreditation Board for Certification Bodies under Quality Council of India, a milestone that Jamiat Ulama-e-Hind Halal Trust has achieved collaborating closely with APEDA. APEDA, Agricultural Product Exports Development Authority of India, and Indian embassies worldwide. We promote Indian halal certified products in global market. It is essential to note that all financial transactions are duly accounted for with proper GST and income tax payments and through auditing, ensuring complete legality and transparency in our operation. The Jamaat The Jamiat said in a written statement, what about export products? Significantly, the ban was imposed only on sales, manufacture and storage within Uttar Pradesh and not meant for export products. As of now, there is no ban on halal certification for export products. However, halal units has been giving certificates only for export purposes. A Jamiat official said, adding, it is a misconception that we give halal certificate for vegetarian products. It is aimed at maligning us. Meanwhile, the retailer whose business was thrown into a chaos due to hastily imposed ban revealed that while many vegetarian food items carry halal certificates when exported to Muslim countries, at times the packages exceeded the number of export items. Those extra packages were at a time used in the domestic market. The products were vegetarian anyway and hence unlikely to hurt anyone's sentiments. What has the government done? Within a week of the announcement of the ban, the state government gave a belated breathing period to all concerned. It allowed retailers 15 days to withdraw any such food items from their shelves. It asked the 92 states-based manufacturers who have been getting halal certification from non-certified organizations to recall and repackage their products. Then next जो है गवर्नमेंट लिस्ट for J&K bills criminal law legislation. The union government has listed four bills related to Jammu and Kashmir, including one pertaining to reservation of assembly seats for Kashmir migrants to be taken up for discussion in the winter session of the parliament that commence December 4. To nominate the Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill 2023, the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Amendment Bill 2023, the Constitution Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Caste Order Amendment Bill 2023, and the Constitution Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Tribe Orders Amendment Bill 2023 were introduced in the Lok Sabha on July 26, but were taken up for discussion or passage in the monsoon session. The Jammu and Kashmir Recognition Amendment Bill seeks to nominate two members from the Kashmir migrants community who migrated when, when militancy was at its peak in 1989-90. As members of the Legislative Assembly of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, one of the members will be a woman. It also proposes to nominate one member from Pakistan occupied Kashmir who was displaced in the 1947-48, 1965 and 1971 Indo-Pakistan War. Preserving rights. The bill aims to preserve their political rights and overall social and economic development. Other than this, the three new criminal codes Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita BNS Bill 2023, Bharatiya Nagarika Suraksha Samhita Bill BNSS Bill 2023 and Bharatiya Sakshya BS Bill 2023 that will replace the Indian Penal Code 1860, Code of Criminal Procedure 1898 and Indian Evidence Act 1872 respectively have also been listed to be taken up for passage in the upcoming session. The bills were introduced on August 11 in Parliament and were referred to the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs for examination which submitted its report this month. The next unemployment rate in urban areas has come down survey. The unemployment rate in urban areas of the country decreased from 7.2% in July-September 2022 to 6.6% in July-September 2023 according to the Periodic Labour Force Survey PLFS conducted by the National Sample Survey Office NSSO. The survey for the period July-September 2023 was released on Wednesday by the Union Labour Ministry. If the 6.6% is the unemployment rate for persons of age 15 years and above for men, it was 6% for women. It decreased from 9.4% in July September last year to 8.6% this year. The labor force participation rate (LFPR) is urban areas increased to 49.3% in July-September 2023 for persons aged 15 years and above, while for males LFPR increased to 73.8% for female LFPR increased to 24.0%, the Labor Ministry said. Then next is India's G20 presidency and the dawn of a new multilateralism. Today marks 365 days since India assumed the G20 presidency. It is a moment to recommit, and rejuvenate the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. As we undertook their responsibility last year, the global landscape grappled with multifaceted challenges, recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, looming climate threats, financial instability, and debt distress in developing nations. All amid a declining multilateralism in middle of conflicts and competition, development cooperation support impending progress. Assuming the G20 chair, India sought to offer the world an alternative to status quo, a shift from GDP centric to human centric progress. India aimed to remind the world of what unites us rather than what divides us. Finally, the global conservation had to evolve, the interest of the few had to give way to the aspirations of many. This required a fundamental reform of multilateralism as we knew it. Today's towards inclusivity. Inclusivity, ambitions, action-oriented, and decisive. These four words defined our approach as the G20 president and the New Delhi Leaders Declaration (NDLD), unanimously adopted by all G20 members, is testimony to our commitment to deliver on these principles. Inclusivity has been at the heart of our presidency. The inclusion of African Union as a permanent member of the G20 integrated 55 African nations into the forum, expanding it to encompasses 80% of the global population. This proactive stance has fostered a more comprehensive dialogue on global challenges and opportunities. The first of its kind Voice of the Global South Summit, convened by India in two editions, heralded a new dawn of multilateralism. India mainstreamed the Global South concern in India international discourage and has urged in an era where developing countries take their rightful place in shaping the global narratives. Inclusivity also infused India's domestic approach to the G20, making it a people's presidency that befits that world's largest democracy through Jan Bhagidari People's Participation events. The G20 reached 1.4 billion citizens involving all states and union territories as partners, and on substantive elements, India ensured that international attention was directed to broader developmental aims aligning with the G20 mandate. At the critical midpoint of the 2030 agenda, India delivered the G20 2023 action plan to accelerate the progress on the Sustainable Development Goals SDGs, taking a cross-cutting action-oriented approach to incorrected issues including health, education, gender equality, and environmental sustainability. A key area driving this process is robust digital public infrastructure. Here, India was decisive in its recommendation, having witnessed the revolutionary impact of the digital innovation like Aadhaar, UPI, and DigiLocker firsthand. Though the G20 was successfully completed, the digital public infrastructure repository, a significant stride in the global technological collaboration. This repository features over 50 DPIs from 16 countries, will help the Global South build, adapt, and scale DPI to unlock the power of inclusive growth. A cleaner, greener world. For One Earth was we introduced ambitious and inclusive aims to create urgent, lasting, and equitable change. The Declaration's Green Development Pact addresses the challenges of choosing between combating hunger and protecting the planet by outlining a comprehensive roadmap where employment and ecosystem are complementary, consumption is climate conscious, and production is planet friendly in tandem. The G20 declaration calls for an ambitious tripling of global renewable energy capacity by 2030, coupled with the establishment of the Global Biofuels Alliance and a concentrated push for green hydrogen. The G20's ambitions to build a cleaner, greener world is undeniable. This has always been India's ethos, and through lifestyles for sustainable development, the world can benefit from our age-old sustainable traditions. Further, the declaration underscores our commitment to climate justice and equity, urging substantial financial and technological support from the global north. For the first time, there was a recognition of the quantum jump needed in the magnitude of development financing, moving from billions to trillions of dollars. The G20 acknowledged that developing countries require $5.9 trillion to fulfill their nationally determined contribution NDCs by 2030. Given the monumental resources required, the G20 emphasized the importance of a better, larger, and more effective multilateral development banks. Concurrently, India is taking a leading role in United Nations reforms, especially in restructuring of principal organs like United Nations Security Council that will ensure a more equitable global order. Gender equality took a center stage in the declaration, culminating in the formation of a dedicated working group on the empowerment of women next year. India's Women's Reservation Bill 2023, reserving one third of India's parliament and state legislative assembly seats for women, epitomizes our commitment to women-led development. The New Delhi Declaration embodies a renewed spirit of collaboration across these key priorities, focusing on policy coherence, reliable trade, and ambitious climate actions. It is a matter of pride that during our presidency, the G20 achieved 87 outcomes of one on eight adopted documented documents, a marked rise from the past, not an era of war. During our G20 presidency, India led deliberation on geopolitical issues and their impact on economic growth and development, terrorism, and the senseless killing of civilians is unacceptable, and we must address with a policy of zero tolerance. We must embody humanitarianism over hostility and reiterate that this is not an era of war. I am delighted that during our presidency, India achieved the extraordinary revitalized multilateralism, amplified the voice of the global south, championed development, and fought for the empowerment of women everywhere. As we hand over the G20 presidency to Brazil, we do so with the conviction that our collective steps for people, planet, peace, and prosperity will resonate for years to come. The next step, feed free food grain scheme to continue for 5 more years. Days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced at an election rally in Chhattisgarh that the scheme to provide free food grains to 81.35 crore people would be extended by 5 years, the Union Cabinet took a formal decision on Wednesday to continue it from January 1. The scheme was to end on the December 31. The opposition has criticized Mr. Modi for making such an announcement without the cabinet's approval. The center launched the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana in March 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown and ended it in December 2022. From January 1, 2023, the scheme and had subsumed other schemes under the National Food Security Act such as Antyodaya Anna Yojana AAY and Priority Household for 1 year AAY card holders will get 35 kg of food grains for a family every month, and the beneficiaries of the other schemes will 5 kg per person a month. 5 kg a person per month. After the cabinet meeting, Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur said government expenditure for the scheme would be around 11.8 lakh crore rupees for the next 5 years. This is a historic decision that places PMGKAY among the world's biggest social welfare schemes aimed at ensuring food and nutrition security for 81.35 crore persons at an estimated cost of 11.8 lakh crore rupees over a 5-year period. A release said. Ensuring food security at this scale during Amrit Kal would play a pivotal role in dedicating efforts towards building an aspirational and developed India, the statement said. The government said the scheme would provide nationwide uniformity in the delivery of food grain free of cost in all states and union territories through a network over the 5 lakh fair price shops under the under a common logo. It will also enable ease of living in terms of allowing beneficiaries to lift free of cost food grains from any fair price shop in the country under the One Nation One Ration Card initiative, the center said. The next is the center to provide drones to 50,000 women's group for use in agriculture. The center will provide drones to 15,000 progressive women self-help groups to be rented out to farmers for agricultural purposes. The drone services are envisaged to be used by the farmers for nano-fertilizers and pesticides application. The decision was taken at a meeting of the Union Cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur told press persons on Wednesday. The scheme will have a financial outlay of 1,261 crore rupees for 2 years beginning 2024-25. The group would be identified from the total 89 lakhs SHGs formed under the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana. Mr. Thakur said, addressing that appropriate clusters where usage of drones is economically feasible will be identified. The groups would get central financial assistance at 80% of the cost of drones. The total expense of a drone and its accessories is about 10 lakh rupees. About 80% of the cost or up to 8 lakh rupees will be provided by the center. He said the drone pilot will get an honorarium of 15,000 rupees and a co-pilot about 10,000. A well-qualified member of SSG aged 18 and above will be elected for a 15-day training comprising 5-day mandatory drone pilot training and additional 10-day training for agriculture purpose of nutrient and pesticide application, while another member of the group will be selected for training as technician or assistant. The approved initiative under the scheme is expected to help these self-help groups earn an additional income of at least 1 lakh in a year. नेक्स्ट दो आर्टिकल जो है कैबिनेट अप्रूव टू 24,144 करोड़ रुपीज आउटले फॉर ट्राइबल वेलफेयर एंड श्रीलंका रिचेस डील विथ इंडिया पेरिस क्लब ऑन डेप्ट प्लान. The Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved a special development missions for particularly vulnerable tribal groups (PVTG) with a total outlay over 24,104 crore rupees over a 3-year period. Of the 24,104 crore rupees, 15,336 crore rupees will be funded by Union Government and 8,768 crore rupees by the respective state government, an official statement said. The PM Janjati Adivasi Nyaya Maha Abhiyan PM Janman, which was announced in the Union Budget and launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on November 15, is meant to improve the overall socio-economic conditions of the 75 tribal groups recognized as particularly vulnerable. Will focus on 11 critical interventions, part of existing schemes, and will be implemented by 9 ministries. The mission aims to build 4.9 lakh Pakka houses by 8,000 kilometers of connecting roads and bring piped water to all households over 22,000 villages. It will also provide community water pipelines to 2,500 particularly vulnerable tribal groups village, each with fewer than 20 households. The scheme aims to build 2,500 Anganwadi centers, set up 1,000 mobile medicine medical units, 10 per district, install mobile towers in 3,000 villages, and set up 500 Bhan Bandhan Vikas Kendras to facilitate the sale of forest produce. The Skill Development Ministry will facilitate the skills and, and vocational training in the selected villages. Then next is Sri Lanka reaches the deal with India and Paris Club on debt plan. Sri Lanka has reached an agreement in principle with India and the Paris Club groups of creditors, including Japan, on a debt treatment plan that will help the crisis hit island nation tap the next tranche of the International Monetary Fund's nearly $3 billion recovery package. The OCC official creditor committee and Sri Lanka agreed on the main parameter of the debt treatment consistent with those of the extended fund facility EFF arrangement between Sri Lanka and the IMF. The Paris Club said in a statement on Wednesday, while the statements did not spell out the parameter of OCC said it stands ready and looks forward to formalizing the agreement in the coming weeks in a memorandum of understanding with Sri Lanka. At the height of last year's crippling economic crisis, Sri Lanka decided to default on its nearly $51 billion foreign debt. A comprehensive restructuring of loans became necessary to bring an economic recovery program backed by the IMF major lenders formed out by the OCC in May 2023 in response to Colombo's request for debt treatment. It is co-chaired by the India, Japan, and France. As chair of the Paris Club, the committee has held several discussions with Sri Lankan authorities over the last few months, evaluating possible operations in the recasting Colombo's outstanding debt, such as altering the interest payment for terms of loans. China, Sri Lanka, largest bilateral creditors, has opted to stay out of the platform but has attended the meeting as an observer. Japan and India, Sri Lanka's other two major lenders, have repeatedly emphasized the need for greater parity and transparency in an apparent reference to China. Thus, OCC on Wednesday noted that it expects that bilateral creditors to consent to sharing in a transparent manner in the information necessary for OCC to evaluate comparability of treatment regarding their own bilateral agreements. The OCC further asked Sri Lanka to continue to engage with its private creditors who hold the largest chunk of the island's foreign debt and swiftly forms of an agreement on terms of at least as favorable as the terms of offered by the OCC. China has assured Sri Lanka of cooperation in the debt restructuring process, and Sri Lanka has in turn assured other creditors of China transparent participation, but the specific of the possible debt treatment plan are awaited. And आज का लास्ट जो आर्टिकल है गवर्नमेंट पेव्स वे फॉर 16th फाइनेंस पैनल. The Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved the terms of reference (TOR) for 16th Finance Commission, which will recommended the formula for sharing revenue between the center and the states for 5-year period beginning on April 1, 2026. The government has set a deadline of October 31, 2025 for a panel to submit its recommendation to the government, said in a statement. Apart from the key recommendation on the distribution of net proceeds of taxes between the center and states and allocation among the states of the respective share of such proceeds, the panel will also prescribe measures needed to augment to augment the consolidated fund of a state to supplement resources of the panchayats and local bodies on the basis of a recommendation made by the respective state finance commission. Under the TOR, the panel will recommend principles that should govern the grants in aid of the revenue of the states out of the consolidated fund of India and the slums to be paid to the states by way of grants in aid of their revenue. Also, it may review the existing arrangements of financing disaster management initiatives and make appropriate recommendations. The government had established an advance cell in the finance ministry on November 21, 2022 to oversee the preliminary work pending formal constitution of the panel. Subsequently, a working group headed by the finance secretary expenditure and comprising several senior officials was set up to assist in the formulations of the TORs as part of the consultative process. Views and suggestions were sought from the state government and union territories with legislature on the TORs and duly deliberated by the groups, the government said. So, friends, this is all for today, and we will meet from tomorrow onwards with the news articles from the Hindu newspapers. So, thanks a lot, and we'll meet from tomorrow onwards. So, keep studying hard. So, thank you.